So here I am again. We will be going live, so I will be doing the countdown. So in 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Good morning and welcome everyone to the SDG Summit Roundtable, Digital Transition Serving the Future of Work. Before starting, I would like to thank TotalEnergies for co-organizing this session with us and for being one of our premium sponsors at this summit. My name is Matilde Castriotta. I am the Future of Work Project Manager at CSR Europe. And today I will moderate today's session. Today we will explore together with our high-level speakers how the digital transition will impact and is already impacting the future of work and which skills and cultural management strategies will mostly needed to embrace this change. I would like to start having a look at today's agenda and introduce you to our speakers. Just a second before the agenda to...
Oh no, she's watching live. Yeah.
Just a very second for... Okay. Yeah. Okay. Going on with the agenda, I would like to start with a presentation made by Jürgen Siebel, Executive Director at CDFOP, who will make a presentation on the future of work in the EU between digitalization and upskilling. Later on, we will move with Frederic Jimenez, Chief Digital Officer and Managing Director at TotalEnergies Digital Factory, who will make a presentation of the case of TotalEnergies Digital Factory. Then we will move to our panel discussion. And the panel discussion will be moderated again by CSR Europe. And our panelists today are Natalia Roldan, Head of Talent and Culture, TotalEnergies Digital Factory, João Santos, Area Leader, Strategic Projects and Talent at Sone MC, Julien Fanon, Talent and Organization Consulting Lead at Accenture, and Chloé Ramon, Manager from the People team at CSR Europe. I would like now to give you a very few technicalities. I would encourage the audience to use all the tools present in the virtual event platform. For instance, the chat, the questions. You can use all the different buttons that you can see on the right side of your screen. And moreover, if you want to ask any question, please use the tool on your right screen, especially because we will also have a Q&A after the panel discussion. So we will have the possibility to address all the questions to the panelists and also to the first speakers after our debate. Moreover, if you want to connect with your speakers, you are welcome to do that by using that networking button at the top of your screen, and you can interact with other attendees or with other speakers. Last but not least, if you want to contact CSR Europe and connect also with us, you have the possibility to do that by using the CSR Toolbox, in which you will find different resources and different ways also to connect with us, with CSR Europe, in order to book some one-to-one calls, in order for you to have more information on what we do and how to make your organization more sustainable. Now, I would like to proceed with the very first presentation of the day, and I would like to leave the floor to Jürgen Siebel, Executive Director at CDFOP, the European Center for the Development of Vocational Training. And I would like to introduce you to the first presentation of the day, which is on the future of work in the EU between digitalization and upskilling. Thank you very much for being with us today, Mr. Siebel, and I leave the floor to you.
Yeah, thank you, Mathilde, and thank you for the opportunity to share some of CDFOP's insights at this important event. In our work, we take vocational education and training, or as we abbreviated VET, and also skills perspective to the digital and the green transitions. VET, if you will, and if you could move to the next slide, please. Sorry, I have to instruct for the slides to be moved. VET is at the heart of the skills revolution, and providing learning opportunities widely helps to ensure that these transitions that societies and people will have to make are also just. Maximizing the potential of vocational education and training and learning starts with reliable information on labor market and skills trends, or as we call it, skills intelligence. At CIDIFOP, we produce and we disseminate such intelligence for the EU and for its member states. We look at what is trending now, and we forecast long-term labor market developments looking ahead about 5 to 10 years. Could move to the next slide, please. Let me start with what our skills intelligence tells us about digitalization and the labor market. First, let me make clear that when we look into the future, we do not only look at mega trends, digitalization, greening, demography, and others in isolation. These trends are very much interrelated and often mutually reinforcing, as we have, for instance, seen during the pandemic. It's nevertheless useful to use scenarios as a tool, or if you will, as a thought experiment, to focus on particular trends. A scenario is a broad brush approach and not a detailed prediction of the future. The scenario is rather one image of a future that helps policymakers and other stakeholders to understand what they should focus on. Our automation scenario looks at job openings. So that's newly emerging jobs as well as jobs that open due to replacement demands. And we do so up to 2030. Most of these new jobs, and that's the first finding we have, most of these new jobs will not, at least not in their entirety, be replaced by automation. But many job openings, which we earlier expected to come about because of replacement demand, will actually not materialize. Second finding we have is that the impact of automation is most pronounced at the lower end of the labor market, with most job openings, about 3 in 4, for low and low qualified people not materializing. Thirdly, jobs requiring higher levels of qualifications are much more shielded from automation, so only about 1 in every 3 jobs will not materialize due to automation. But let's not forget, regardless, that also some high-skilled occupations are strongly affected by automation, in particular administration professionals. Lastly, job openings in the sectors ICT, education, energy, public services, and defense are least likely to disappear as a result of automation. Please move on to the next slide. Here, we clearly see that apart from macro shifts in the labor market, digitalization changes jobs fundamentally from within. And it's important to be aware that already before the pandemic, there was a huge up and reskilling need. CIDIFOP estimated in 2019 that as much as 128 million adults in the EU 28, that's about 46% of the adult population, have a potential to improve their skills. A survey we carried out jointly with our sister agency Eurofound in 2020 clearly shows the magnitude of change COVID-19 brought about, on top of those already very high skilling needs that we found before the pandemic. So 3 in 4 EU companies that we surveyed, experienced changing skills requirements due to the pandemic. Both basic and advanced digital skills are on the rise here. 1 in every 2 adult workers in the EU had to use new digital technologies that they did not use before the pandemic just to do their jobs. Now, a key question is, of course, what are the implications for actual skills demands? At CIDIFOP, we use Skillsovate, which is a tool collecting and analyzing online job openings, advertisements to help us see trends in labor markets, broken down by occupation, skills, regions, or sectors, and in real time. Looking at the labor market since 2020, Skillsovate shows 3 key trends. First, there's a clear jump in demand for workers with basic knowledge in ICT, in software, in presentations, or other virtual communication tools. All of these accommodating a shift to remote work. 7 in 10 companies say that they embrace the home office and are in it for the long haul. So this is also not something that will go away. Secondly, there is an increasing demand for workers with good command of business ICT systems and various applications, tools for software and web development, data analytical skills, and ICT skills for setting up networks and databases. That's no surprise. But also, and lastly, there's a much stronger emphasis on business transformation skills, developing or expanding online shops, promoting e-commerce via creative design skills and remote customer outreach, shaping digital sales strategies and new management styles to accommodate for a socially distanced workforce. If you could move on to the next slide, please. So what do we need to do to meet these skills needs? We first and foremost have to shift gears. Adult learning participation is much too low. It's telling that only a handful of EU countries met the quite modest targets for lifelong learning for 2020, which was 15% of adults participating in formal and non-formal education and training. And this modest target, was set about a decade ago. Our own evidence from our 2019 opinion survey shows, however, that learners themselves are quite convinced that learning is good for them. 78% of adults in the EU totally agree that learning throughout life is important. 84% of adults in the EU believe that learning, and adult learning in particular, and training will become even more important for career progress in the next decade. EU adult education surveys, however, consistently show that awareness does not automatically translate into actual participation in adult learning. Many adults do not take part in adult learning and continuous vocational education and training because they see no need for themselves, and they also lack incentives. Quality also plays a role. When we asked adults in 2019 what they think about the quality of the training in their country, only about 11% perceived it as very good. And as this is a CSR Europe event, let's not forget the important role of employers. While we know work itself drives a lot of learning, a strikingly low share of companies manage to shape work so that it offers the right mix of job skills, complexity, autonomy, job stability, and support that would actually foster learning at work. However, doing that, fostering learning at work, is in any company's own interest. Learning-rich environments have a clear positive bottom line effect, and they are innovation drivers. A new European Training and Learning Survey is in the making to explore more deeply what drives different types of learning, and also to map more precisely its impacts on people, companies, and on society. But all this means that working at the margins will not be enough. We need a much more systematic approach to adult learning and continuous vocational education and training. In fact, it must become a new normal for all adults. The new and more ambitious targets set in the 2020 EU Skills Agenda will not be reached unless we radically change how we approach, organize, and design learning opportunities, and use the right incentives to open up access to them, to those opportunities, to stimulate participation, and in particular among those groups that need it most. You could move to the next slide, please. What is the role of the EU and of CEDEFOP in this skills revolution? Well, one important accomplishment, in my view at least, is that the policy framework for vocational education and training and skills is in place now. There's a new skills agenda, the Council recommendation on VET in Europe, and the Osnabrück Declaration, all released last year. But concerted efforts of the member states, the social partners, the VET providers, and others are needed to deliver on the EU's ambitions. If you look at the agenda and the recommendation and the declaration, all documents show the challenges ahead. All the important aspects are charted in terms of a way forward, and also targets and funding opportunities are there. So let's get going and get going together. For CEDEFOP, we focus on shifting from supporting, changing and adapting vocational education and training and skills intelligence to actually reinventing. That is, if you will, the revolutionary element that also hits us as an organization. Because much of CEDEFOP's recent work is now more future-oriented, and we focus on how to enable the skills revolution. For instance, in our work on the future of VET, on micro-credentials, or our work on financial incentives, including individual learning accounts. A new generation of skills intelligence is also in the making. While it has long been useful for experts and stakeholders, but much less helpful for those who could benefit from it most, namely the citizens in need for information that guides them in their careers, we will make skills intelligence more user-centered in its next generation. And helping people make transitions means that apart from saying where to go and what skills to develop, we also need to provide insights on how to get there. If you could move on to my last slide, then I would conclude by saying that we, but also the EU more broadly, have an important role to play in network building, in policy learning, and promoting skills ecosystem thinking. From interacting with our own stakeholders, we see that there is a lot of scope to overcome policy silos, to build innovative partnerships, to link expertise and information more systematically, and to learn from successes and failures. Meeting the skills challenges of this decade and decades to come is an enormous task. I am, however, optimistic about what can be achieved, especially if we try to achieve it together. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Siebel, for this very insightful presentation and for all the all the data also that you provided us about the work that CEDEFOP is doing. I think it's extremely interesting. Thank you very much. As anticipated, I would like to just remind the audience that you can write all the questions that you might have in the Q&A box that you find on the right side of your screen, and we will address all these questions after the panel debate, the panel discussion. So thank you very much again, Mr. Siebel. I will now proceed to the second presentation of our morning. I would like to leave the floor to Mr. Frederic Jimenez, who is the Chief Digital Officer and Managing Director at TotalEnergies Digital Factory, and who will also be presenting the case of TotalEnergies Digital Factory today. So, Mr. Jimenez, the floor is yours. Thank you very much for being with us today.
Thank you, Mathilde. Good morning, everybody. I'm very happy to be with you today, just before this very exciting roundtable about digital transition serving the future of work. Next slide, please. As you know, the world is facing big challenges today with a growing population and a rising of living standard that lead to a need of more energy on one side, and at the same time, the mobilization to achieve carbon neutrality by 2050, so less emission. So more energy, less carbon. To solve this very difficult equation, energy must reinvent itself. And in TotalEnergies, we are deeply convinced that digital has a key role to play in this transformation. Next slide, please. Digital is at the heart of a major transformation shaping the future of work, both as a challenge, we know it, and also as a booster. To get the best out of it, and to efficiently accelerate digital transition to serve this competitive and sustainable future of work, TotalEnergies created its digital factory in 2020, so last year. So our mission in the digital factory is based on 3 pillars. The first one is to deliver a digital solution tailor-made for all business units and all activity of the company. We are not selling our tools, we are designing tools to transform the company. To accelerate, because digital is a huge lever to accelerate the transformation. So accelerate by being agile in the way we build our solution, but also in our ability to scale and deploy in all sites around the world. And we are in 130 countries, so it's a big challenge. And lastly, to transform the way our employee will operate their activity with digital, but also by being a true catalyst for new ways of working in the digital factory, and I will come back to that. Next slide, please. But finally, what is a digital factory? It's a bold combination of a tech company with a robust delivery engine of a factory. Why is it bold? It's because we try to keep the right balance between having a kind of startup mindset and startup way of working to foster innovation, agility, as well as bringing high-tech capabilities, which is the startup DNA, with a more industrial approach of a factory to deliver at scale. To do that, our organization is based on a collection of around 30 small delivery teams, fully autonomous, like a startup, to build a solution for a specific activity or specific business or a specific country, with the strong support of the factory to accelerate dramatically the capacity to spread the digital throughout the company. Next slide, please. So what type of issue are we tackling in the digital factory? Digital technology can drive progress in a wide range of areas. In the digital factory, we cover a lot of them. In our case, I will just give a few examples without getting into detail, but our solution aims to help people in the field. We are 100,000 people all over the world. A lot of them are on the field, on offshore platform, in refineries, in service stations, but also in wind offshore, wind farm or solar farm, etc., etc. So on the field. And so we help people to modernize, optimize, and improve safety in their daily operation. We also aim to reduce energy consumption and so greenhouse gas emission in all our activities. We want to create new service for customers. And for example, in electrical mobility, there is a wide range of new services to create, but also to prepare the new energy offering, especially in the renewable business. Next slide, please. So if the digital factory is a robust engine, it is also intended to be a real catalyst of new ways of working. In that sense, the digital factory is a kind of experimentation hub for new ways of working. It started with the fact that we've recruited more than 100 people in Paris in a bit more than 1 year, with a wide range of technology background and very different approach in their way of working regarding what was done in TotalEnergies. And mixing this new type of resources, tech people, with very knowledgeable people from the business of Total in small team, small squad, giving them full autonomy with an agile framework to deliver solution to the final users is very disruptive in terms of approach in the way we build and we run projects. So to succeed, clearly, we had to review our management scheme, the way we evaluate performance, how do we promote a test and learn culture, and we are engineers, so it's not so easy. And we are constantly adapting our method to the feedback of our teams because we are still learning. Next slide. So if a digital factory is a robust engine, the power of this engine is clearly brought by our people. So we pay a lot of attention to have the right value proposition, the one that suits their expectation. And their expectations are mainly around three main axes. They want to grow. And so we really put a lot of emphasis of first being at the top of the technology, because we are finally a digital factory is a tech company. So we use extensively the last solution on the market like cloud, data, artificial intelligence, and the people who come to us want to use that. And this technology that will help to transform the business. We need to be a learning organization, learning by classical training, but also with community of practice, sharing, on-the-job training. So a lot of new ways of train the people, and it's permanent training. But after, they also want to have impact. They want to build with purpose. And to have impact, we really pay attention that the solutions they deliver are really designed with and for final users on the field people, and our teams want to see the impact by themselves, so they are in a permanent contact with the field to be sure to be able to see the impact they have with what they develop. And lastly, they want to make a difference. Making a difference starts with us with having a very diverse and inclusive environment. In our recruitment, we have a mix of about 40% of women, which is a real challenge in the tech world, and more than 45% on non-French. We have disabled people, etc. And this mix is very, very valuable for the entire company. And finally, we want them, and they want to be ambassador of new ways of working throughout the company, because what we live on a daily basis in the digital factory need to be shared everywhere in the company. This is also part of our duty. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Mr. Jimenez, for your insightful presentation on the TotalEnergies Digital Factory, which is indeed a very innovative and sustainable approach to the future of work. I would like now to proceed with the panel discussion, and I would like to open the debate with our four leading panelists of today, and we will cover the topic of the digital transition and the impact that this has on the future of work from different angles, from HR challenges and digitalization, going to the culture change management and the strategies that should be adopted in this case, and also mentioning upskilling and reskilling strategies. So again, I would like to welcome Natalia Roldan, Head of Talent and Culture from TotalEnergies Digital Factory, João Santos, Area Leader, Strategic Projects and Talent at Sone MC, Julien Fanon, Talent and Organization Consulting Lead at Accenture, and finally, Chloe Ramon, Manager from the People team at CSR Europe. Thank you all for being here today, for being part of this panel discussion. I would like to start maybe with a question to Natalia in order to make let's say, a connection also with the presentation we just heard from Mr. Jimenez about the TotalEnergies Digital Factory. So Natalia, according to you, how do you think a digital transition might serve a sustainable future of work? And which are the key factors or the main challenges that accelerate the digital transition?
Thank you, Mathilde. It's an honor to be with you guys today. Listen, I think we've heard a lot of great insights so far from the introduction. I'm just going to try to connect with that. It's one of the biggest things is about digital transformation. When we talk about it, it's more about how digital can serve the overall business transformation that's already taking place. What we see is that technology is changing the workplace, but more importantly, the biggest change is the mindset shift that's coming through all of this. And as we heard in the introduction, our biggest challenge is fostering that learning environment as work, as Frederic mentioned, at the Digital Factory, one of our key priorities is to be able to grow every day in our workplace. Because what we realized very quickly is that although what we know is important and that gets our foot in the door, it's our background, our competencies, our capacity to learn and to learn quickly, to be able to adapt to our environment, that's what will enable the workforce of today to survive in the workplace of tomorrow. So one of the key priorities in the Digital Factory has been to be able to set up really a learning organization where we can capture all of those key learnings across the company, meaning that we have to have a posture of learning all of the time. So learning from our experience, learning from our peers, from mentors, sharing our key learnings from failures, sharing best practices. And that really needs to be in the DNA of the company all across the organization, from the leadership level all the way to the teams, something that we create time for. And that's really important, I think, as employers, is making sure not only that we create time for that learning to take place, but also valuing it as a contribution that we make to the bottom line, because essentially it is. There's a lot of, we can put so many objectives across delivering, but if we're not learning from what we're doing each time, if we're not improving along the way, then that's really a loss. And so we need to value that and see what it can also bring to the collective efficiency, to our collective intelligence, which is something that we've really tried to focus on in the culture that we set for the Digital Factory. And also, I think another challenge is, as we see, the world is just more uncertain. There's more complexities. The problems that we're dealing with are not straightforward. As you heard, in the energy transition, it's how do we provide more energy that's more affordable, that's cleaner to the greatest number of people with reducing emissions. That is not an easy challenge, and we need people to be a part of that solution and to be included in the discussion. And this is where I think really diversity has a key role to play. How do we tackle those complex business challenges with multidisciplinary, diverse teams that are included and that their voices are heard? And this is where that's really key, is that we invite everyone to be a part of the solution, that we do so in a way that we are able to leverage, again, that collective efficiency, our learnings. That is a big challenge, but it's also important that we set in place a culture that really rewards that. So for us, you've heard, we've put a big emphasis on making sure we have a great gender mix, that we have a diversity of all kinds. But one of the biggest things that I think helps us be able to move forward is that the tech profiles and the business profiles, they work together and they're tackling these complex business challenges together. So it's also, multidisciplinary teams looking at a problem from all angles that allows us to really be able to shift the needle forward and take this transformation to the next step.
Thank you very much, Natalia. I think it's absolutely really interesting and important what you just said about the importance of a learning organization in which there is the possibility of learning from other experiences, from failures sometimes, from the experiences of other people, of other colleagues, and mixing together the tech company and a business mindset. That's extremely important. And I think it's also really fundamental to develop the right skills, as we were saying before, also to have the right mindset in order to face this change and this new revolution that a digital transformation might have in a new work culture and a new work environment. So I would like now to hear maybe some comments or some concrete examples of upskilling strategies from João Santos, because I know that since you are working in the retail business at Sone MC, you have a new leadership program that worked efficiently and was a great example of digitalization mixed with upskilling.
Exactly. Good morning, everyone. First of all, it's an honor and a pleasure for me to be here with you today discussing such an important topic as the future of work. As you were saying, we have some concrete examples already that we are seeing good results with this type of approach and developing a learning organization. But I would like to start just to tell you a little bit about also, and picking up on what we were hearing from Natalia. And when we think about digital transition, there is obviously a lot of challenges that it poses both for employees and for companies. And one additional challenge that I would add on top of what Natalia said is, and for us as a top priority in Sone IMC, is the fact that actually we need with digital transition to ensure the sustainability of work. And for us, this is a top priority, especially because we are in a sector where digital transition has a huge impact on our workforce, mainly the ones that work in the shop floor. So we believe that the sustainability of work, it is achieved when a person can be employed by an extended period of time. And in order for this to happen, companies must have a key role, and they have to ensure three things. First, there is demand for human labor, because it's easy in a moment of digital transitions to believe that everything will be performed by machines, but there's still a huge role to play by human beings. So companies have this extremely important role to ensure that they have demand for human labor. Second part is that the person that is performing this work has the right skill set to perform that role, and we will go a little bit deeper on this later on. And last but not least, is quite important, and nowadays becomes even more important, and we are also working on that, the fact that when you ask someone to perform an activity, that activity actually contributes to their well-being. And so when you have these three factors in place, I believe, or we believe, that we can ensure the sustainability of work. Picking up now directly on your question, we believe that one of the key roles in the digital transition comes to leaders at every level of the organization. Leaders are the ones that, in the first hand, define the path, the digital path that the company will follow. And second of all, and most important, they will be the ones to guide and support their teams throughout this transition. And as I was saying before, in a sector like retail, food retail, where you have the huge chunk of your population is in retail stores and is used to work with physical labor, they are the ones that will be most impacted by digital transition. So we believe that first and foremost, we should prepare our leaders for this transition. So 1 or 2 years ago, we identified this issue, and we wanted to define a new leadership manifesto, where we wanted to pick up on a group of 3,000 leaders that were recognized historically by their drive and their result-oriented mindset, and bring them more to a humanity and proximity side. And this is not an easy change to make, since sometimes we have leaders that have been with us for 20 to 30 years, and that's the model they believe in. So in order to achieve this, we decided to deploy a three-phase approach. So after we defined this leadership manifesto, where we had 5 key principles that leaders should follow, and each principle would then be divided into 15 behaviors that we would like to see practiced on day-to-day life. And these behaviors would cover many distinct things, since things like manage your own emotions when you are feeling more stressed, or take time to know your team at a more personal level. And this was a broad range of behaviors. So we believe that we needed to do this in order to ensure that this model was a reality in the day-to-day life. We needed to go to 3 phases. The first one would be awareness. So our people, not only the leaders, but the whole organization, would know about this model. The second part will be making a profound assessment of our people, because we know that having such a broad model, there will be people, leaders with many different profiles, who will have to work, each of them, in different things. And then the last phase, the one that we are now, and we will be quite some time in this, because it's a long journey, the enablement phase. And as you were saying before, digital was also a key lever for us to ensure that in a pandemic landscape, we were able to deploy this model and start delivering it throughout our company, which currently has 35,000 people spread around Portugal. So And in three very different landscapes, we have leaders in headquarter landscape, which is your typical day-to-day office activities. We have distribution centers where we have a more industrial landscape, and also we have the stores where you have retail stores. So it's also a very different landscape. So in the awareness phase, and this was essential to spread out the word, not only to leaders, but to the whole organization, the way that we found it would be easier to reach everyone is that we actually made some kind of morning show where every week you would have a famous person in Portugal coming to be the host, and he will invite leaders from the organization who were recognized as an example and a role model in each of the behaviors that we were trying to spread out throughout the organization. And these leaders will actually tell the others, how does this behavior help them in the real life? How does it actually plan out on day to day? And what are the outcomes that they get? So with this, people started to get higher awareness of what the model was. The second part was assessment, and we performed a 360-degree evaluation of all our 3,000 leaders, picking up information from interviews, picking up information from assessments and surveys from their own teams, their own leaders, and themselves. And after this, we leverage advanced analytics to understand from the individual profile of each of our leaders in these behaviors. And then we reach the last part and the most challenging one, which is the one that we hope that we will continue this path of changing their behavior, which is the enablement phase. And for that, of course, again, digital was essential because we were able to gather a lot of content for these leaders, not only explaining them what the behaviors were, but giving them also some tips on how to, on the day-to-day life and within their own reality, they could try to start performing those behaviors that we would like them to do. And by having this tailored digital journey that they can access anywhere and anytime on their mobile phones, on their phone or their computers, we are now seeing them evolving, and we are constantly monitoring their evolution. And now we are seeing what we were seeing gaps a few months ago. We are seeing these gaps slowly disappearing. And most importantly, we are seeing a significant uplift in employee satisfaction and also engagement with their leaders. So right now, so far we are happy, but we know that this is a long battle and a long way until we'll have our leaders behaving the way we believe it best suits the digital transition.
Thank you very much, João, for your for describing your new leadership model implemented at SONE AMSI. I think it is extremely important, in fact, to have awareness, assessment, and enablement of the best practices in the leaders. And I would now I'm curious to know a little bit more also the opinion of Mr. Fanon, of Julien, since we have been talking about the right skill set, shifting the mindset, and learning organization, and let's say best practices learned from leaders. However, I feel like sometimes it's not that easy to bring the digitalization within a new culture of work and to change the culture of work. So from your experience at Accenture as talent and organization consulting lead, what would you say? Is it something that it's easy to do, or is it something that encounters many challenges?
Thank you, Mathilde, and thank you for having me. I'm very happy to be a part of this panel. Maybe before addressing your question directly, if you allow me, I'd like to piggyback on something that Natalia said and Joe said. I think you designed an excellent panel here, because retail and energy are probably two of the sectors where the workforce will be the most impacted. So it's very interesting to have this panel. What we mean by impact on the workforce is obviously you have a lot of you have an aging population, more in energy than in retail, that you need to replace, and that means you need to attract new talent. And we know that companies may have bigger challenges today in attracting the right talent. We think that one of the key is the purpose, and that echoes what Frédéric said earlier. You need a strong purpose to keep attracting the best talent. We assess that 70% of adult male and 80% of women are looking for a strong purpose before joining a new employer, and we believe this is key, and this is a real challenge for most companies today to articulate what will be the purpose and what will be what they can offer to the new generation of recruitees. So that's one thing. Once you have attracted the talent, of course, you need to keep developing them all the time. And this is exactly what Natalia said. We need to become learning organization. There is one figure that I really like. We estimate that in 1985, the lifespan of a competency was 30 years, meaning you could graduate from school and basically leverage that new skill set for your entire career. So 30 years in 1984, we estimate that in 2020, the lifespan of the skill is about 5 years. That means that every 5 years, you need to relearn a new set of skills to remain employable and relevant on the market. And this is back to what Jao said. We need to secure the employability of our people. This is one of the key responsibilities of employers. And to do that, we need to make sure that people can learn all the time. So of course, we need learning organization, and we also need to find skills on the market that can be reskilled all the time, that can learn to relearn all the time. We need to transfer that skill, that meta skill of relearning. And we believe this is one of the key skills that we need to find on the market today. As a matter of fact, we see more and more companies recruiting differently. They're not looking specifically for specific skill sets. They are looking for this potential to learn and grow. And back to Natalia, what Natalia was saying, that's interesting because that opens a very interesting perspective in terms of inclusion on the workforce. You may not look for always the same skills from the same subset of engineering school or management school. You're looking for skills that are spread out in the population. What many companies are doing is shifting to tools relying on artificial intelligence or data and analytics to detect those specific skills in the candidates. So here, that's how digital also can help build a more sustainable workforce. You need new skills like the capacity to keep learning all the time, to keep growing all the time, and you can detect those skills using AI and using data, for instance, with serious gaming, and many companies are experiencing this as we speak. So that's one part I wanted to leverage or to highlight. Another thing is back to what Joe was saying is definitely you need, and that address also your question, Mathilde. We need maybe not a new generation of leaders, but we need new skills in the leadership, new capacities in the leadership. What we did last year is we conducted a study with the World Economic Forum, and we found out that the modern leader, it's complicated to be leader in 2022 or 2021. As Natalia said, we are in a very VUCA environment, so very volatile, uncertain, complex, ambiguous. It's complicated because basically, as a leader, you need to combine three things: the daily operational excellence, the capacity to keep innovating all the time, and you need to be much more stakeholder-centric than before. And I think this notion of being stakeholder-centric is key when you think of the future of work and the future of leadership. And I would say, combine those three requirements, we found out that the modern leaders would basically have three or five key capacities. The first one is the capacity to be very inclusive of all kinds of stakeholders. The second one is to activate a little bit more the right right side of the brain more than only the left side. So a little bit more in the empathy, in the intuition, and less only into the analytical part of the brain. The third capacity of the future leader is to be able to articulate a clear purpose and to engage the entire workforce behind this purpose. So again, back to what Frédéric was saying, this notion of purpose is key. As a leader, you must absolutely be able to define this purpose and to embark your people. The fourth capacity is the capacity to understand technology, to understand innovation, and to have a responsible use of technology innovation, because technology and innovation are obviously only tools, and the impact can be very positive, can sometimes be negative. And as a future leader, you need to be able to mitigate or understand how to mitigate the potential negative impact of technology and innovation. And the last one, of course, is to be able to connect, collaborate, keep growing and learning all the time. So we found that basically these are the five, I would say, skills of the modern leader, and that there should be a clear pathway on how to develop the new leadership for today and for tomorrow. As per your question, Mathilde, yes, obviously there is a challenge in shifting to a new culture. digital is nothing more than new tools or new technologies combined with new ways of working. So, getting skilled around the new tools and the new technologies is not so complicated. It's a lot of training, it's a lot of coaching, it's a lot of experiencing on the field. But I believe that the highest barrier is really the new ways of working. And that's pretty much what Frédéric was mentioning earlier. How do you shift in a very agile mindset? Not so easy in, I would say, traditional companies or very industrial companies. So there's a lot of coaching here that is needed to understand the virtue and the principles of agile working. How do you work more with an ecosystem, with a different, panel of stakeholders? How do you maybe accept to take some risks, some more risks sometimes? That's the kind of mindset shift that we need to observe to really take the full benefit of digital. And that's a lot of work. Okay, basically, culture happens by anchoring new values, new behaviors, new ways of working, and that's daily work to make sure that those new behaviors, those new ways of working would happen on the field. You shift, behaviors and ways of working are really the visible part of culture. And this is because over the time you will shift ways of working and you will shift behaviors that you would shift eventually the culture and take full benefits of this digital transformation.
Thank you very much, Julien, for your for all these very interesting insights that you gave us. In particular, I think it was extremely important to draft the 5 skills of the modern new leader that you mentioned: inclusiveness, using empathy and soft skills, basically having a clear mission and purpose, the innovation and the responsible use of it, because it's not just a matter of using new technologies, but also, I guess, also understand the pros of using them and using them in a responsible way. And of course, keeping learning and keeping connecting. And I also guess that it's kind of difficult to adapt to this new modern and be able to shift, to have this mind shift, because it's something that no one previously did, because it's something that is in continuous learning, continuous evaluation. So it's not that you can really base yourself on something that happened precedently. You really have to, as you were saying, use your soft skills and be able to go with the skills and go with the emotions and the sensation that you have. Of course, always being able to draft data to understand the situation overall, but also I guess it's more a matter of also trust with the employees and trust in what you're doing and in your mission. I would like now to maybe ask a very consideration to Chloé Ramon, the manager of the people team at CSR Europe. Since we were talking a lot about skills that employees should have and skills that the modern leader should have, at the end of the day, it's always about upskilling. And it's a learn and relearn, as Julien was saying, and it's a matter also of inclusion of the workforce. So since we were also discussing the sustainability of the future work, my question would be how do you think that upskilling can be considered as a sustainable practice for the future of work, and why?
Thank you, Mathilde. Thanks to all of you for the very interesting insights. I think that upskilling and reskilling practices are fundamental for a sustainable approach to HR management. Companies must invest in their workforce and understand that employees should engage in lifelong learning paths, improving their skill sets and in a continuous way. Upskilling is sustainable because wants to avoid the hire and fire practices. That is to stay the tendency of firing employees as soon as these do not update their skill sets with the labor market requests. I believe that it will be more sustainable, just and responsible to invest on workforce and train it to carefully choose people that do not only work well and have a precise number of abilities, but that show and prove their interest in acquiring new skills in the future. The workforce of tomorrow must be dynamic, able to evolve and adapt to new jobs and work tools. In particular, know that digital devices are more and more present in our society and work life. Upskilling is also the main topic of Upskill for Future, the project that CSR Europe is developing in 4 countries, France, Italy, Poland, and Spain, involving more than 33 companies, especially SMEs. The goal of this project, which is funded by JP Morgan, is to improve the HR management of SMEs, promoting upskilling and reskilling practices, especially towards employees at risk.
Thank you very much, Chloe, for your answer. And exactly, I totally agree. Also, what as CSR Europe we are doing, it's especially focused on the sustainability of the future of work, and not only. And I know that maybe we might go a little bit more deeper in the upskilling section, and let's say dive a little bit more into this topic. And João, do you have other comments to make, and maybe share any experience from your side?
Yeah. So as I was mentioning before, for Sun AMC, one of the key challenges is sustainability of work. And one of the key facts that we believe we have to ensure is that our population, our workforce has correct skills to perform the activities that we demand from them. So as we all know, the retail sector is undergoing a deep digital transformation, mainly on the stores, and we all know the examples of the Amazon Go and all the almost full digital stores that we have being deployed all over the world. But at the same time, also when we look at the headquarter landscape and those types of central functions, there's also a lot of digital disruption going on, namely with advanced analytics and so on. So facing this challenging, understanding that the digital transition will substantially change the need or our demand for skills from more physical or low cognitive work to a more high cognitive and technological skills, we decided then to start this journey a few months ago already, and we deployed an enterprise-wide project where we paired not only the HR division but also business leaders across the enterprise, and our key goal was to ensure that in the next 2 to 3 years we are able to ensure that, one, we are able to effectively anticipate the skills that we need on time for us to be able to upskill our workforce. Second, that we are able to deploy a robust upskilling engine that our people can rely on constantly in order to upskill wherever they need to continue their career with us. And last but not least, we believe it's our responsibility to provide to our workforce flexible work models, where the career paths where they can effectively change their roles according to their own skills, and that we are able to recognize and promote the people who go through our upskilling initiatives. So far, as I mentioned, we started a few months ago, and this is not an easy exercise, especially in a digital transformation landscape, where trying to understand what's going to be happening 6 months later is hard. If you think about 2 to 3 years, it's almost impossible. And when you go when you think about what you really need to know in order for you to prepare the upskilling of your people, you need to know not only what the company tends to do, but you need to know it at a level of detail that then you understand what does that relate with skills of your workforce. So we went through this process, and so far we have already successfully established what our key upskilling priorities for the near future. And I believe it will be interesting to share here in this panel today, since what I believe we had some nice insights, and one of them I already shared with you, which was the leadership is probably the key skill for us in the immediate future. But also I believe some other insights are interesting to share, because they are not exclusive from us or from our sector, and that they might be translatable to other companies or for people that are listening to this panel. So bear in mind, when you think about the food retailer, we have 3 different landscapes. We have the headquarters that I already referred to. We have distribution centers, which is more like an industrial landscape, and then we have the stores. And these 3 dimensions, they have some specific needs. When we think about headquarters, the big theme is, or one of the big things is advanced analytics and big data. And everybody knows that more and more, this is something that we already need and we will need every time more. And everybody knows that we will need a lot of data scientists and a lot of developers. But what we cannot forget is everyone else that is working in the company and that will have to work with the output of the job that these guys are doing. And that's not an easy task to do, because us and most companies in their headquarters divisions, they have multiple profiles that most of them or many of them do not come from an analytical background. So we will have to upskill these people in order for them to be able to keep with us and work with the output of what the others are doing. Another key skill that we believe is essential, and it's a very hard one to train at an individual level, is creativity. Because as digital transition evolves, we will see more and more machines doing the routine-based work and data-driven work, and we will have to focus our people in doing what people do best and can differentiate themselves, which is creative work, innovation work, interaction with other human beings. So increasing the creativity of our workforce is essential for us. And we are still trying to find how we can actually train this. And we believe that it's something that is not easy to train at an individual level, because some people, they're just not creative. They don't have that skill, and others are born creative. So we believe actually the best way to tackle this is not from an individual standpoint, but as an organizational standpoint, by deploying agile work models and a more flexible ways of working, so that altogether the creativity as a whole can increase. When we move to a more industrial landscape, and here I'm talking of our distribution centers, the key theme becomes automation of physical processes. Of course, here it's a little bit easier for us to anticipate what's happening, because there are many sectors that are ahead of us in this type of challenge, but nevertheless, it will be a big challenge for us. And two key skills arise here. One of them for the leaders, and it's the critical thinking. Because they are used to manage a day-to-day process that is always the same, and whenever there is a problem in the distribution line, they solve it with the people. Now they will have to solve it faster and in anticipation, because they'll be dealing with machines, automated machines. So their critical thinking and decision making on the spot will have to be upskilled. And then for the workforce, a key skill that we need to develop is resilience, because if you think about an industrial landscape that is going through a profound digital transformation and everything is replaced by machine, you need to be very resilient in order to survive through that and understand. And of course, there is then the role of the company to support you, but you as a person, you need to be resilient in order to survive this and come out on the other end. And last but not least, the stores. And as I was saying before, we all know the degree of change and disruption that we are watching in the stores. And even though probably when we look at Portugal, the degree of the digital maturity is not as high as other companies. And this has to do with the cost of labor, which is a little bit lower. So we can delay a little bit digital transition, but nevertheless, it's happening now, and it will happen in the near future. So we have we expect that in the next few years we deploy a lot of new digital solutions in the stores. And what actually we have to do is, going back to what I was saying before, focus people where they actually provide much more value, which is in the interaction with the end customers. So as the same way that we are introducing these digital solutions, and we will have to upskill our population in the basic digital skills or digital literacy, because they will have to interact with digital solutions. And bear in mind that when we are talking about a workforce in retail stores, typically you don't have college graduates, so there is some upskilling to do there. But most importantly, we have to train them in adaptability. They will have to be ready to be working in a store that is constantly piloting new solutions, and they will have to be working and delivering the products to the customer. But the most relevant skill, and also a big challenge in terms of upskilling, is to develop interpersonal skills and empathy, because we have a workforce that has been used to work where their job is to move products from one side to the other of the store. And actually what we will need from them now is not to move products anymore. We will need them to be in the shop floor, interact with the end customer to drive sales. So this is a big shift, but and the big challenge is that we have more than 20,000 people that we have to upskill to ensure that we have also a good service throughout, but we can upskill And picking up on what Julian was saying, open up the left side of the brain and try to be more engaging with the customer. So these are our key challenges. We are now in the phase of defining or understanding how we are going to upskill our workforce and how we are going to deploy the upskilling engine. But I believe that some of these insights might be interesting for other companies also to understand the dimension of the challenge that we all have in front of us.
Thank you very much, Joao. And again, I think we're starting to have a very good list of let's say, characteristics that every leaders will have to develop, of skills that employees should develop in the future. And I feel like the common basis is that since digitalization will work and will take care basically of all the administrative works, then we will be able to develop a little bit more on the interpersonal skills. And that's extremely important, and is something that I think in the last years we have been a little bit losing, and we should start addressing again in the future. Natalia, what do you think? Do you think there is something that should be added to all these comments and to all the things that we have just discussed, or do you think these leaders are perfect to go and there's nothing else to comment on?
We've had a great start. I think there's still a lot of work to be done. One of the biggest things, just bouncing off, I think what's been already said in this panel, is that learning happens and upskilling happens by doing. I think we can't underestimate the power that there is behind giving people an opportunity to experience different things and to be immersed in a learning environment. And that's where I think even when we talked about earlier, Julien's example about modern leaders, and what that looks like, being able to leverage inclusivity and activating different sides of the brain. I think in the digital factory, what we're seeing, as I mentioned before, is having leaders be able to recognize ongoing learning activities and continuing improvement as a contribution to the bottom line, meaning that being the most improved is just as important as an award as being the best of. And that's a change in the leadership model that we might have had before. But also, when we were talking about earlier, is we work in an ecosystem, and leaders need to, yes, give individual recognition, but also learn to set collective objectives, measure collective performance. So how do we link with the overall organization? And so our leaders need to activate that, embarking all of their teams on that journey, which is critical. And then we were talking as well about the responsibility they have as employers, and then that responsibility, of course, is also shared with the leaders for developing and growing the talent in their teams. They're responsible for mentoring them, for coaching them, for linking them to the overarching purpose, for increasing their employability in the internal and external market. Those are the signs of an efficient modern leader. So that's really key for upskilling our leaders, is to help them, be able to accompany them in that. But also when we're thinking about our workforce, the digital factory for us has been a great opportunity to create an experiential learning hub, really a place where people can come and live and experience. As I mentioned, we have multidisciplinary teams. We have digital profiles that we've recruited that have come from other digital native companies and bring a certain background and expertise. But we also have, business professionals who have been in the energy industry for many, many years, and they come here and they have an opportunity to really exchange and touch and feel what working on a digital problem is like, and to really upskill them. It requires us to create a tailored journey. So we've actually created, tailored learning journeys depending on the different kinds of profiles. One of the profiles that's really important for us is, for example, the product owner that comes from the business and works inside the digital factory with a team to be able to develop a digital solution for their business. They come from the business, so they might come from a refinery, or they might come from an offshore platform, and they come and they spend time here in the digital factory building a digital solution to a business problem with the technical skills. And that experience, they come out of it not only with a product, which is great, but they come out of this experience with a whole skill set of new ways of working that they're going to bring with them. And that is key for their upskilling journey going forward. It's also important that we provide people different ways to develop their careers. Some people are looking to become specialists and experts in an area. Other people are looking to broaden their skill set and be able to lead multidisciplinary teams. There's no one-size-fits-all approach, and that's what I think is so critical in this, is that our upskilling and reskilling ambition needs to be able to really be inclusive for all of those different career paths that people might want to take, because we need all of them. Our challenges are so big that we actually can have a win-win solution. We bring all of these things together.
Thank you. Any other comments, maybe?
Yes, from my side, I want to maybe to add, an important aspect or topic. So next to skills, upskilling, reskilling, learning, leadership, I think, and thank you all for the really interesting inputs and insights. I think we miss maybe one important aspect, meaning people voices. What I mean to that is if we use, for example, a methodology like 360-degree feedback culture. I think both from an external but as well an internal point of view. I mean, if we can give feedback exchange within companies at different levels and at all levels, I think it can be definitely create change. And create change from the heart of the company, meaning people. So that's maybe my topic to add.
Thank you very much, Chloe. And we just received one question on our chat, so I would maybe address this question to Julien also, because it's a very broad topic, I would say, so you can dive a little bit more into this. The question is, how do leadership skills requirements for the future of work differ from traditional ways of leadership in this new digital, innovative, virtual, and collaborative environment? And where to find or where to upskill these leaders. You were also mentioning the importance of versatility as a key for tomorrow. So I understand it's a very big question. But yeah, where would you start with the upskilling of the leaders of the tomorrow?
So Mathilde, I will start, but I expect Natalia and João and Chloe to chime in as well and support the thinking here. Maybe on the versatility, my comment was not so much on the leaders, but more on the broad workforce. So João said that there's a challenge in making sure that we can reskill the workforce on various tasks. I think it's very true in the retail industry, and João, you would confirm that over the past years you had to move people from a pure cashier role to being on the shop floor, interacting with the client, and tomorrow maybe preparing the deliveries for the drive part of the retail, or the delivery part of the retail. So we see that versatility will be one of the key for securing the employability of people in retail, but not only in retail. That it's true for any kind of sector. In energy, this is very true as well. You may need less maintenance engineers on pipeline, for instance, because maybe you will have less pipeline in the future and most of the maintenance will be automated. But you will need more maintenance engineers on decentralized assets. And that will induce versatility in terms of skills, in terms of activities. So I think versatility will be key, and we must make sure that we hire people and train people not only to learn and relearn all the time, but also being able to be a little bit more versatile in the skills they will use on the ground. So that's one thing for the versatility. For the leaders, I think. So I have a bias because I'm a very strong believer that one of the key difference between leaders of tomorrow and leaders of yesterday is this capacity to integrate different viewpoints in terms of different stakeholders. Okay, we used to be obsessed by customer centricity. I think it's great. I think we need to be obsessed by customer centricity, but now we need to extend the 360 view and integrate other viewpoints. We need to be obsessed by employee centricity, and someone in the panel mentioned earlier that we need to think of the employee experience all the time. I think if you want to keep your people in your company, you need to be obsessed by employee centricity, and everything that Natalia and Frédéric described at the TotalEnergies Digital Factory is a good example of how you can build the skills all the time and develop this employee experience. You need to be obsessed by other stakeholders outside of the company, NGOs, civil society. You need to be obsessed by your suppliers. So it's really this capacity of being 360 in terms of stakeholder centricity. And by the way, this is how you will create impact. And we talk a lot about social impact, environmental impact. Many companies have redefined their purpose, but if you really want to have this systemic impact on the ground, one of the key is to be stakeholder centric and understand the viewpoint of different stakeholders. So that's one thing. Another thing is, we mentioned that earlier, it's to activate the right part of the brain, not only the left part. And so the left part used to be very analytical, very data driven. We need to keep that part. It's important, but we need to activate the right part, which is more about empathy, intuition, capacity to enter in connection with your different stakeholders in your ecosystem. I think those two notions might be very different from how we tended to see leadership in the past. But maybe Natalia or Zhao, if you want to chime in.
Just to add a little bit on the versatility, I mean, I'm coming back to the multidisciplinary teams again, and I mentioned that so many times because it builds so many skills. Zhao mentioned resilience as well. I think when we take people out of their comfort zone, that in and of itself, not only does it develop resilience, but also putting specialists and experts in multidisciplinary teams, it gets them out of their own level of comfort and competence, and forces them to see other sides, other perspectives to complex issues. And again, the business challenges we're facing now, they are not single disciplinary. They require all of these different experts to come together and work together. So I think, really giving teams the opportunity to participate in these multidisciplinary challenges allows us to tackle this. And also, I think it's very true what you said, Juliana, about being stakeholder centric. It's about understanding, what are the real challenges, understanding the real problem, and for that you need to understand your stakeholders. So I fully agree with you. It's key to this new leadership model, and I think, one of the part of the question, if I go back, it was where to find and upskill these leaders. I think you have them in your organization. You need to build them. You need to expose them to these. The challenges are there. The people are there. You just have to get to work with them to be able to think differently. But of course, you're going to have some early adopters that may be already ahead of the curve, and use them to be able to train others. Again, it's that learning organization being able to leverage on those best practices.
I would like to add two things here. One, with this last point of Natalia, which is look inside. When you think about how to upskill the leaders, look inside. If you are a big enough organization, you will have a tremendous amount of leaders, and you will have your role models inside. And the more the people relate with what they are seeing, the better it is for them to understand how they have to change and how to put the new skill into practice. And we all know that learning on the job is the best, and this will be always the best way to upskill. Another key factor that I would add here is not actually a skill, is a state of mind, is the willingness. It's essential that not only leaders, but everyone has this willingness to change. It's not easy, but there's no way around it. And if there is one key thing that I would have to say to anyone at this point is you have to change. And picking up what Julien was saying, probably when my father went out of university, his skill set was there for your whole life. Now, all of us here, we have to be prepared to 5 years later be doing something totally different. So willingness to change and awareness of what is going on is essential to spread the word and to make this happen.
Thank you very much for all your comments. There is just one very last topic and question maybe I would like to address, it's about ecosystems, meaning that just like the digital factory, I would say, so do we need more collaborative ecosystems to be put in place that strengthen somehow the training and the HR sector, and at the same time the technical industrial management? How would you combine the two things, and how would you like improve the collaboration between these two sectors that sometimes are a little bit seen as distanced?
Yeah, so just let me start giving a first level of response, and again, I encourage the other panelists to contribute. I think traditional training models, we think of a catalog of, e-learnings or, classroom training that we can attend. There's usually a set budget. You can go to X number of days per year, or maybe you've budgeted this on a dollar amount or euro amount. We're in Europe. So, that is the traditional model of what the company, quote unquote, invests in training their people. That is no longer, I think, sufficient to deal with the challenges and the pace at which we have change happening in the workplace. And so more and more, we're having to move out of, traditional training and what that looks like. It's more than just e-learning and classroom. It is more about learning experiences, as I mentioned before. What are the kinds of projects you put your people on? What are the competencies they're going to develop through being on that project? That is experiential learning. It's about, learning from your peers, learning because you have a great mentor, the role of the manager as a coach. All of those things provide learning in more of a diverse model. And that actually starts to combine the business and the traditional training model together, because a lot of that is that learning and that training is going to come from the business. They're responsible for creating an environment that really fosters this learning culture. So, mentorship, coaching, learning from peers, again, going back to what was shared on feedback, which is critical. How do we give each other feedback that is constructive, that allows us to improve time after time? And how do we incorporate that into, a ritual it's in the DNA of the organization? So all of those things all contribute to learning. They all contribute to upskilling. And when we see the entirety of it, we see actually it's happening already. It's just, more of a shift from what we consider traditional training to more of the experiential and learning that we have from each other.
Thank you very much, Natalia. One final word from the other panelists before our goodbyes, maybe, to comment on this.
Okay, if possible, I would like to add something. When you think about ecosystem and you start from HR, that's not the model anymore. So traditionally, you would look at HR as the people responsible for going and finding the content and spreading the content. I believe that more and more that's not their role. The role is to understand what is needed, and that has to be done with the business, because business knows the direction that they're doing. And one key factor from HR is to know who are the people to go to in each step of things. So as we were mentioning before, the multitude of skills that you need right now is such that you won't have at your starting point someone that has all of them, but you have to be sure that you know who are your internal role models and internal champions. And if you don't have inside, you have to find someone outside that can then use and leverage that person or set of persons to be your internal champions in order to and understand how you can upskill your workforce. Another key lever that we identify in SONAI that works pretty well and that we believe should also is a way to go in the future, and picking up of also on what Natalia was saying, is peer mentoring. So because you have so many skills and you have people that are good at one thing and people that are good at the others, more often than not, you find that two people have a matching profile. I need to develop something, and someone else who already has that skill has something else that I need to that I have that he needs to develop. So peer mentoring works very well because both people feel that they are being upskilled, and you can basically, as a human resources area, you create this ecosystem, but you are just joining people. And this requires from us, HR, deep knowledge of each individual and their own skill set, and that's also a very important goal for us in the future.
Thank you very much, Joao, and thank you to all of you for being here today. Do you have any other last comments? I don't think we have new questions from our side. So, well, I thank you a lot, all of you, for being here today. I thank you, the first panelists at the beginning, and then, of course, the four of you now for this very insightful panel discussion that I think was extremely rich of interesting insights, and a lot of different topics were covered on leaders, on the skills that will be needed tomorrow, and all of different future of work and digitalization topics that will absolutely be addressed in the future. I would now maybe start to round up a little bit. We're going towards the end of our session today. So I would just like to see the slides on the next session that we will have today. Since the SDG Summit is still long to go and we are still 3 days together. So next, today we will have another plenary, Finance in the Future, then a national SDG Roundtable on sustainability for the young generations, the national SDG Roundtable on advancing corporate sustainability reporting, the national SDG Roundtable on inclusion in the workplace. And in the next days, I advise you not to miss the plenary on creating future-proof and inclusive work, co-organized with NL. And again, if you were interested in digitalization and how digitalization will impact the future of work and also education and generally society, I welcome you to the European SDG Roundtable on Thursday on envisaging the STEM classroom of the future. I would like now to thank again a lot all of our speakers of the day, Jürgen Siebel, Frederic Jimenez, Natalia Rolden, Joao Santos, Julien Fanon, and Claire Ramon for being here today with us. It has been a great opportunity and I hope you all enjoyed this session as much as I did. Thank you very much for all your insights and thank you for your presentations. I really hope you will have an amazing time with the summit and I hope to see you soon. Thank you very much.